Two, one, go.
Hey everybody, Papa Wigs here with Wigs. We're gonna do week 5 recap here. Yeah, it was another interesting week. Uh, the Vikings pulled out a big win in London over the Jets. Um, Listen, I thought the Vikings, they looked good in the first quarter, but after that they didn't really look that good. I don't know what you think, Wigs, but and then it didn't help that. I mean, it helped them that Rodgers was playing or hurt his ankle a little bit there. That definitely hampered him getting the ball to everybody he needed to. The Jets didn't do what they needed to do. They got away from Brees Hall. They should have been using him a lot more in this game to create some stuff. I still think the Vikings have they're 5-0, but I'm not sold. I'm not trying to be a naysayer. I don't think their defense looked great in the second half. I don't think our offense looked great in the second half. We scored 6 points, 2 field goals, right, Wiggs? I think it was. Um, I think that if they really want to make a Super Bowl push right now, they better make some moves here on their bye week. I mean, if I were them, I'd be going after Devontae Adams. They could do it. They could bring in another receiver. We're going to be losing Addison. I think Addison actually has his trial this week. I think it's like Tuesday or something, or today. Is it? Or no, today's Monday. But it's this week. They're talking he's going to be gone for 6 weeks. So yeah, I hope that they make a push. I'm still not sold on it. Sorry, I've been a Vikings fan all my life. They got to go deep in the playoffs for me to even be convinced. I could care less what the record is in the regular season. I want a Super
Yeah, and it
Bowl.
was really just the Jets game to lose. Like they lost that themselves. It wasn't even anything the Vikings did, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't. They adjusted in the second half. Actually, they had a pretty good game plan outside of the fact that they really weren't getting the ball to Brees Hall. They were doing a lot of short passes and stuff, but none of them were to Hall, right, Wiggs? I mean, it was crazy. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Uh, the Bears against the Panthers. That was DJ Moore had a nice game, 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Caleb was finally getting him some passes. I think Wiggs, you said that DJ dropped a couple too. One of them, which probably would have been another touchdown, was it? And and then I knew the Panthers were going to struggle against this Bear defense. Although Hubbard still had about 100 yards in that game, didn't he? I think so, and he
He
had
had
a
90,
touchdown.
97 rushing. He had over 100 combined.
Yeah, so listen, the Bears keep winning. They're right there in the thick of things in the NFC North. And the Panthers, they need to figure something out. I think I this was a tough Bears defense. I still think they made the right move putting in Andy Dalton. So, but yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that one, Wiggs?
Oh, the Panthers just looked bad. Their defense couldn't stop the Bears, and I mean, I don't think really the Bears were doing anything special. It's just the Panthers literally just weren't tackling and not covering their guys. Like it was pretty simple for the Bears to score 36 points when you're not actually playing defense.
Yeah, so that takes us into the Browns and the Commanders. Listen, this turned out exactly. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but um, uh, you know that Commanders offense is looking really good. Their defense, played pretty good. Not that the Browns offense was really making it hard for them. But Jaden Daniels, McLaurin, Robinson, those guys are all playing really good high level football right now. They're 4-1, top of their division. I don't think anybody was expecting that. The Browns, on the other hand, I don't care what Kevin Stefanski says as the head coach. Deshaun Watson is not good. He is not playing high level football right now. I mean, Caleb Williams is actually playing better to me than Deshaun Watson at this point. Uh, I'm not saying they should change quarterbacks, but they need to figure out what's going on with their offense. They can't get their running game going. I mean, did Ford even do anything in this game?
Neither one of them did.
He didn't do anything. I mean, I think Cooper had like 4 receptions for 60 some yards. Uh, their defense is not playing at a high level right now. This Browns team, I mean, I know that they've had some injuries and stuff, but boy, they are a big disappointment. Probably one of the bigger disappointments so far this year. Would you agree, Wiggs?
Yeah, and the Commanders are looking good. Daniels for over 300 combined yards yesterday again. He led the team in rushing and then threw for over 220 yards. So him and McLaurin seem to be on the same page. As back-to-back 100-yard games for McLaurin as well. So
Yeah, I think they're finally getting on the same. They're finally connecting and stuff. So I think it just took some time. And the thing I like about Daniels is he knows when to run, when not to run, and he protects himself when he runs. You know what I mean? He's not doing a lot of stupid things when he runs. If he knows he can run for a first down and he's going to go out of bounds, he goes out of bounds.
yeah,
He's not sticking his shoulder down or
he's not pulling the Tua.
yeah, or well, not even the Tua, the Richardson.
Well, that too.
I mean, he to me he's definitely showing why he was the number 2 pick overall in this draft. Um, so yeah, and then the Dolphins against the Patriots. No surprise here. Although the Dolphins had to work for this one, I think it was a lot harder than I thought they would have had to. Uh, plus, the Patriots just lost their captain on their football team. He just got arrested. I mean, it's just going from bad to worse for them right now. The Dolphins did what they had to pull out a win, but their offense, they need Tua back bad. They need him back really, really bad. I think they're on bye next week. Maybe. No. It might be week 7. But no, I think it might be next week. But they need him back really bad. Their running game was horrendous. Then they lost to Chani. He was out. I don't know. Did you hear what he did? What was it?
Concussion.
Was it concussion? So they were using Mozart and Wright. So, but they did what they needed to do. Hill didn't have a great game. Waddle didn't have a great game, and that Patriots offense is atrocious. They just can't do anything. Stevenson, although, came out and showed the coach why he should be the starting running back. So
pretty standard game between two bad teams. So I don't really have much to say there. Stevenson was really the only highlight there, and that was really about it.
Yeah. Jacksonville versus the Colts. I picked this one right. I got lucky, I guess. But Brian Thomas had a huge game, 122 yards, a touchdown. Listen, he I think he's going to be the guy going forward. That's just my opinion. I think Trevor Lawrence is starting to find a connection with him, and they should be using him, right, Wiggs? I mean, he's a talented receiver. The Colts. What can you say about Joe Flacco? This guy is a monster. I mean, he goes into the Cleveland last year and does what he does. He comes back here with the Colts. Tears it up. Really, he tears it up. He doesn't make mistakes. He keeps them in the game. Michael Pittman's benefiting from it. They didn't have Jonathan Taylor, which was a huge loss for them, obviously. But to be quite honest with you, I think Taylor's a bigger loss than Richardson, and I kind of think the Colts might take their time with Richardson here since Flacco's playing so well. So the Jaguars defense, obviously, they have some stuff to work on, but they did enough to do what they needed to do to pull out a win here and get their first win of the year at home. And it was nice to see Brian Thomas break out with a win or break out with a big game.
Yeah, he had a nice long touchdown there in that game, and then Flacco on the other side of things. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Flacco. I wish we'd see a lot more of him. I think, like you said, they could take their time with Richardson and let Flacco play because we saw what he did last year at the Browns. He's coming already and made an impact here at the Colts. Just a slow start there from them, but like you said, they're being out's a big hit. Their run game was really not there. It was more so the running backs receiving the ball than anything. So the majority of that game they were passing. But something to look at for the Jaguars. ETN has been rumored to possible teams for a trade. Is what I'm
Yeah,
reading.
I've heard that too. I heard he could potentially be traded. I don't know how much truth there is to that.
Yeah.
But Bigsby's looked really
But
good.
Bigsby had over 100 yards yesterday rushing, 2 touchdowns. Like, he's been looking good.
I mean, Stevenson's been rumored to be on the block as well for the Patriots. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
That leads us into our next game. I think one of the better games of the week, the Bills versus the Texans. I didn't think it was going to be as close as it was. But let me tell you, I every time I see CJ Stroud, Wiggs, we were talking about this yesterday. I think you agree. I like him more and more as a quarterback in this league. We need more role models, more guys like this guy in the league. He just goes out there and battles and battles and battles. Doesn't make excuses. Guy goes down like Collins did. He finds other targets. They just were they picked it up. They had a solid game. It came down to the last possession. They probably got, in my opinion, the best, if not one of the best kickers in the league, over 50 yards at least. And but I got to give props to the Bills. They were down Shakir. They used Coleman a little bit. Cook had a good game. They stayed in it. I mean, they really did. They battled all the way to the end. It just came down to the last possession, and the Texans pulled out the win.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Nothing really yesterday impressed me about the Bills at all. Not having Stephon Diggs is a major hit because Josh Allen is struggling to find his receivers. I think he was 9 of 30 throwing the ball yesterday. So I don't know. Like,
he wasn't even looking. He was looking for Kincaid, but he didn't really get him.
no,
They needed to get him in a rhythm with Kincaid right away.
You need to get. I think you need both Kincaid and Knox on the field right now. You need to find one of your two guys because you've shown you can throw the ball to both your tight ends at some point in your career. You're not really finding any of your receivers, and when you are, you're missing them or they're dropping it. Like Coleman targeted 5 times yesterday, only caught the ball once. I didn't watch the entire game, but I don't know if it was just missed passes or what.
He missed them. Coleman actually had. He. I don't think he dropped. Any balls, and then there was one where Coleman had to basically break it up so that the guy didn't intercept it.
Yeah, so Josh Allen just needs to figure out what the heck to do in this offense because you talk about, oh, it's nice not having, a selfish, like, receiver on your team or whatever, and then now you're not finding anyone because you don't have that selfish, like, all-star on your team, basically, at receiver, and these last 2 weeks have shown how you need to find your guy in this offense, and you can't just rely on everyone being unselfish.
Well, and I agree to a degree with that, Wiggs. I think if that's what you're gonna do, if you're gonna use the whole Bill Belichick, Tom Brady type, philosophy like they did, then you got to do what they did, and you got to get your running backs more involved in the passing game. And they really weren't getting James Cook involved in the passing game or their other running backs. They weren't using their tight ends as much as Brady would use. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and like you said, they've got 2 really good tight ends. I mean, Knox is a starting tight end on any other team, and so if you're gonna play that card, then you gotta step up and you gotta use the players that you have. I mean, why aren't you using James Cook more in the passing game? He's really good out of the backfield.
Yeah, he's really good just in general.
He's better coming out of the backfield in the receiving game than his brother was.
Yeah.
So
it's the Bills are one of the handful of teams I have an issue with this year and not utilizing their talent. Like them and the freaking Jets are probably the worst at it right now, and then you got the Falcons outside of this week that aren't using their talent. Like these teams are struggling because they're not using the players the way they need to be using them, and they're not realizing it, and they won't set their egos aside and just figure it out and get to the point. Because there's no reason James Cook should not be involved. There's no reason someone like Breece Hall should not be involved in an offense. There's no reason Coleman, even as a rookie, shouldn't be more involved. Like, don't get me wrong, 5 targets is great, but you need to find your guy in this offense. And if you're not getting it to Kincaid or Cook, then it needs to be Coleman. And if you're not doing all 3 of those, you're just going to lose games.
Yeah, well, they're dependent on Josh Allen pulling out miracles every week, and that's just not going to happen because these teams are catching up. So that takes us into the other really exciting game this week, the Ravens versus the Bengals. I know Wiggs doesn't really want to talk about this game, but listen, props to Joe Burrow. They came out. They actually were moving the ball. He's definitely found his connection with Jamar Chase. Higgins had a really good game. Uh, but the Ravens ultimately came out. I mean, they almost blew it at the end there, right, Wiggs? And but they came back, and then Henry wasn't didn't do really anything in the whole entire game, and then in overtime he had that
Yeah,
big
50-yard
run,
run. Yeah.
50-yard run, and then they brought Tucker out and they won the game in overtime. Listen, the Ravens did what they needed to do to win. Their defense surprised me a little bit. I thought they would have been a little bit more efficient against the Bengals, but on the flip side of that, I'm not a huge Burrow, Chase fan, but it was at least nice to see that the Bengals are going to be competitive this year against some of these top teams and stuff. So, Chase ended up having 193 yards for 2 touchdowns. Lamar had over 403 total yards and 4 touchdowns in this game.
Burrow was almost to 400 with 5 touchdowns. Like, it was a really
Yeah,
high fantasy
it was
game.
a really
Zay Flowers had over 100
high
yards.
game and stuff. And listen, props to them. But for those of you that want to talk about the Chase Jefferson comparison, sorry, I'll take Jefferson every day of the week over Chase. That's just my opinion. I know everybody knows I'm a huge Vikings fan. I just like Jefferson's attitude. I like the way he approaches the game. I like the way he approached his contract. He did everything the right way, and he's getting rewarded. And Chase to me is more focused on his individual accolades than he is on the team's accolades. At least with what you hear him say in his interviews and stuff like that. Jefferson is focused on the team's accolades rather than his individual
Yeah, Jefferson
accolades.
wants to win a Super
He
Bowl.
wants to win the Super Bowl. He wants to win multiple Super Bowls. I'll take him over him any day of the week. That's just my opinion. Listen, Jeff Chase is a talented guy. He just needs to get his ego in check. Once he does that, I'll gain a lot more respect for him. But kudos to the Ravens for coming off because they had a big turnover there, didn't they?
Yeah, Lamar fumbled the ball in overtime right away.
Yeah, and so but their defense came out and got the stops when they needed to, and they got a big play from Henry when they needed to in overtime, and they pulled out a big win.
The Bengals defense lost them this game. They were up by 13 points at one point. So
Yeah, and we talked about this, right? We said in order for the Bengals to be competitive this year, their defense they need to figure out their defense, which is surprising because their defense has usually been pretty good the last few years, and yeah, they're just struggling. So that leads us into the next game. Listen, we talked about this Wiggs, Raiders, Broncos. I'm liking Bo Nix more and more every single week. Um, I saw a couple videos where him and Sean Payton got into it on the sideline. Right after they got into it, he led his team down on 2 consecutive touchdown drives. I think Bo Nix is the real deal for all those people that passed on him and thought that he wasn't going to be a good quarterback. As much as I don't like Sean Payton is finding ways to win with him, and he knows he's going to have the growing pains with him as a rookie quarterback. But I think he's doing exactly the opposite of what the Patriots should be doing with me. He threw his guy out there in the fire, right? And he's trying to design it so that he can make his rookie quarterback successful. They finally got Javonte Williams involved in the offense. He had a total of 111 yards. A little bit surprising to see that. I was surprised they dominated the Raiders the way they did. Now, granted, the Raiders didn't have Devontae Adams. You can make an argument whether you like them or not. They didn't have Zamir White. Um, but the Raiders are just a mess. To me, the Raiders, I thought they would be a lot better right now. Another major disappointing team this year. I think the Raiders and the Browns are two of the big disappointments this year for me. I thought the Raiders would be playing a lot better, even with the quarterbacks they have. Maybe now Antonio Pierce will actually give Aiden O'Donnell a chance, because I really do think O'Donnell could have a future in the NFL as a starting quarterback if he's given the right opportunity.
Well,
Um,
he threw the ball over. I think it was like 20 times last night because they bench you.
yeah, so I just think that, and that's probably when Judy or Jacoby Myers started
Yep.
producing, because he had like 13 points, and that was probably, him and Myers got a connection. They got two of the best tight ends in the league. One of them, they don't really use, but he is really good. They got Bowers.
Bowers
Uh,
had a great game last night.
yeah, and their defense is just really struggling right now. Max Crosby isn't 100%. That guy's a beast when he's 100%, and he is definitely a difference maker in games in both rush and passing for the defense. So they need to get him back to 100%. Hopefully, they can turn this around, and maybe Pierce will finally make the decision to put Aiden O'Donnell in there and give him a shot.
Yeah, I was a little surprised, but props to the Broncos defense. PS3 with a 100-yard pick six. We love to see that. I think they also, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was them that had a 100-yard fumble recovery too.
Oh, did they? Yeah, I don't
One of
know.
the teams, I think it was them, but I don't remember exactly. But we saw over two plays over 100 yards, turnovers, I should say, yesterday. So
I think I think a lot of teams are overlooking this Broncos team, and I think that um, they're going to be in for a rude awakening, because their defense is playing really at a high level, and Sean Payton is getting the very most out of his rookie quarterback right now. If he can keep Javonte Williams going, this offense is going to
well,
be
Williams led in rushing and receiving yesterday. So
they're going to be really, which doesn't surprise me, because look at what he did with
yep.
Kamara when he was with the Saints, right? That leads us into to me kind of a surprise win here a little bit. Maybe not. It was a division game. Cardinals 49ers. Cardinals pulled it off. 1 point win, 24-23. They obviously their defense kept them into this. I think their offense didn't have a great game. Marvin Harrison didn't have a great game, right? Wiggs, he had,
My dud of the week,
yeah, he didn't have a great game.
5.9 points.
So the 49ers, their defense just, I don't know, their defense and offense, they're just not on all cylinders right now. They need to figure it out. But kudos to the Cardinals with a big road win yesterday, a big division win and stuff. This division's going to be open, I think, for anybody um, to come out and win it.
Yeah, I was very shocked the Cardinals came out and won. Wish I could have watched that entire game because that would have been a fun and interesting one to watch. Because Brandon Ayuk finally had a good game, had almost 150 yards there, and I was really surprised when I saw the result of this game because we didn't get it on like our station. So when I saw that, I'm like, "There's no shot," but they pulled off a win, and that division is a lot more interesting than I thought it would be this year.
Yeah, well, Kyle Murray's starting to figure it out as their quarterback, and so I think that he's had a lot of growth this year. So he's dangerous, especially, he reminds me a lot of Lamar, because he can run the ball really well and stuff as well. So yeah, they're a team, and their defense is starting to play. Their defense is playing really well. So that leads us into another big surprise this week.
The biggest one probably of the
This
week.
is a big surprise, just not because I don't think the Giants don't have a good team, but the fact that the Giants went into Seattle, who's really tough to play at home, without their top receiver and Neighbors, without their top running back and Singletary, and still pull out a 29-20 win over the Seahawks. I think we talked a little bit about this before, Wiggs. I feel that the Giants' defense is underrated. I think a lot of teams overlook how good their defense really is, and I think that once Neighbors is back, man, their offense is starting to figure it out. And kudos to Tyrone Tracy coming in 130 total yards. I think Singletary might be losing some reps here, because Tracy showed against a very tough Seahawks team how good of a running back he really is.
And Tracy didn't even get the start in this game. Eric Gray did, and Gray fumbled at the goal line. and they gave him the ball less after that. So
Wow, that's crazy. And then Slayton stepped up,
had it over 120 yards.
and Robinson had a decent game. This is a good young offense here in New York. I think Dable, who's the guy that was credited with the product um, with all the behind the scenes stuff with Josh Allen. Maybe he's starting to figure it out with Daniel Jones, which is a good thing and stuff. But man, this Giants team really surprised me. The Seahawks defense, I think, kind of let them down a little bit here, but um, uh, you can't really. Geno had a good game, um, but yeah, the Giants just stifled them, pulled out a big win, big
And
road win.
wish I would have stuck with my gut. I was talking about it yesterday. I had them originally beating the Seahawks, and I changed my mind last second the night before. Wish I would have just stuck with my gut because they pull out a win. I wasn't surprised they pulled off a win against the Seahawks, but I was really surprised that Slayton had the game he had. I mean, Robinson had a pretty solid game as well. Tracy obviously had a good game. Gray didn't have a bad game. He just fumbled the ball at the worst possible time. The Giants end that game by blocking a field goal and returning it for a touchdown, or else it would have gone to overtime. So
Yeah, Slayton's another one that they're talking about could be out on the trade block. Um, you know, because once Neighbors is back, I think Slayton's going to find it hard to uh, niche his role into the offense. But that leads us into the Packers at the Rams. No surprise here. I thought the Packers were going to win. Wiggs, I think you had the Packers winning too, didn't
yeah,
you? So, um, Tyler Kraft had a really good game,
Tucker.
or Tucker Kraft. He had a really good game. Jacobs, he had a decent game, from my understanding. I didn't really get to see too much of this. Love was back there, so he led the Packers. Again, the Packers are nipping right at the Vikings, heels here, and they're going to be tough. They're going to be tough. Once everybody's fully healthy here on the Packers, this NFC North is going to be tough, and that's why I'm not sitting here, saying Super Bowl for the Vikings just yet, because the Vikings have some real tough games ahead here. Yes, they had a tough part of their schedule, but the other thing is that they usually like to play down to their competition as well. So hopefully that doesn't happen. But this Packers team is going to still give them a run for their money. The Rams, they just need to get healthy, Wigs. I mean, Kyron had a decent game.
Kyron can only do so much for the offense.
Right. I mean, they just, Whittington had a decent game. Stafford just needs his weapons back. They just,
they've looked good with the limited weapons they've had. So, like, even with them losing, I wouldn't lose hope in them making the playoffs, because even without Nakua and Cup, they've looked pretty good. They just can't finish the games because they don't have all their weapons.
Right, that's just it. I heard that the Rams are on bye. That there's a good chance that they could get,
Cup.
I think, Cup back
Yeah.
after the bye. So that'll help them out. They just need to get healthy. I mean they're actually playing really good football considering all their injuries. So teams better not overlook them, especially their defense. Their defense has actually kind of surprised me this year. And then that leads us into the Sunday night game. Listen, this to me, couple things here. Uh, I think the Steelers defense, they played okay, but when they needed to get a big stop at the end of the game, they couldn't do it. And so the Cowboys pulled out the win here, 20-17. Listen, I'm not a huge Cowboys fan. I'm not a huge Dak fan. I think the Cowboys are overrated. Their defense is dealing with a lot of injuries right now. I do think that Justin Fields didn't have a very good game yesterday. I think he struggled. I think there's a very good chance that we could see Russell Wilson. As much as I hate to say it, a lot of people are saying that this was the game to kind of, see, because Russell Wilson's on the verge of coming back. I don't think Russell Wilson's necessarily the answer. I just think that Fields may have fumbled the ball in regards to holding on to the starting job after this loss. He just didn't look that great in this one. He needs to figure out. I like Justin Fields personally myself. I think he could be a really good quarterback. He just needs to find some consistency. I don't know if it's because the Steelers don't really have another legitimate wide receiver to help out in that passing game, outside of Pickens. Their run game has really struggled. This was a game that they really should have won, I feel. I mean, the Steelers defense, even though the Cowboys came out with the win, they held them to 20 points, which is pretty good against CeeDee Lamb and that offense. I was surprised Rico had the game that he did because, he was the guy that I said to sit. Um, but, they needed to come up with a big stop at the end of the game and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, this is a very frustrating game on multiple ends for me. Like, one, it cost me my fantasy week completely because Fields could not connect with his receivers. He missed Pickens a lot last night, and it wasn't even like, oh, it was tip. Nah, he just overthrew him. Like, he was just not on point. He looked terrible last night. I'm gonna be completely honest. Fields looked awful. He ran the ball decent, but like you said, they couldn't get their run game going really. Um,
And this was the game that they should have been able to run.
yeah, and they couldn't get the ball to the receivers they needed to. Like I said, it was a really frustrating game for me because it screwed me on several ends there in fantasy, but Fields also just missed a lot of key plays, and it was just really sad to watch.
Well, yeah, and the Cowboys lost another one of their pass rushers right at the beginning of the game. They were already down Lawrence and Parsons, Micah Parsons and stuff, and so they're just devastated with injuries on defense right now. This was a game that the Steelers, especially at home, should have won. And listen, you can say they had a rain delay, a field, this, that. No, you can't make excuses. This was a prime Steelers type of game that they should have won. They should have been able to pound the ball with Najee. Um, they should have been able to have the time of possession. They shouldn't have had to rely on Fields having to make the big plays there and stuff. The Cowboys wanted this game more. Right? That's what it comes down to.
To be fair, though, like the Steelers' offense, in my eyes, lost in the game. Like I get they didn't get the stops at the end of the game, but they picked off Dak twice yesterday, and the Steelers just couldn't capitalize.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I agree with you, Wiggs, that their offense let them down. I just think that after seeing how the game ended, it was also kind of a. You would hope the Steelers defense could have stopped them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it was just that type of game where you knew their defense was gonna have to come up with that one more big play. But I agree with you. They had a lot of big picks. They had a blocked field goal, I believe, in this game as well, and stuff. So definitely their offense could not take advantage of the opportunities their defense gave them, or throughout the game for sure. I agree with you there. So with that, we got the big game tonight, Saints and Chiefs. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It was another interesting week here, in the league. We'll find out tonight if the Vikings are going to be the only undefeated team, though, right? Because the Chiefs are the only other undefeated team right now. They're 4-0. So if the Chiefs lose, the big talk after that's going to be the fact that the Vikings are 5-0 and they're the only undefeated team. So, and I'm going to put one more pitch out there. Get Devontae. Come on. Do it. With that, though, check us out on Fantasy Fools PPR. We're also out on Snap, X, TikTok, Instagram. Like, share, submit. If you got any feedback or you got any lineup questions, shoot them our way. We hope you're finding this as another useful resource. And until next time, we'll see you soon.